Deon Derrico went live today. As you guys may or may not know, Amani did end up passing today. He posted this picture on his Instagram showing him holding Amani's hand. Amani was introduced to us in season 3 of Doubling Down with the Derricos. Amani had recently just had a third liver transplant, but unfortunately, he did not make it. We are praying for the Derrico family as well as Amani's son, Adonis. And now here's the live where Deon explains Amani's last moments. Rest in peace, Amani Barkley.
Showing us so much love that I haven't even been able to keep up with your DMs. I mean, at this point, I have lost any ability to reach back out to you guys personally, thanking you for the love, the outpouring of love and condolences. I see your messages, but all of them I haven't. Hey, what's up, Dre? Just want to say, just want to catch you guys up on how we got here. Of course, we wasn't able to really share a lot of it with you because it was going on while we were filming, and he wanted to be Amani, wanted to be on the show. He wanted to come back. Unfortunately, his health didn't allow him to. And at first, it kept being a lot of little things. And I've been telling people it was a lot of little things that kept seeming to be little things and going away. And then time we got hopeful that, okay, good, everything is great, it's looking up. There was some issues with the hospital accepting the insurance he had, which he's always had, but for some reason the hospital, they couldn't accept the insurance, and then they sent him to another hospital, all while he was needing a liver transplant. So finally, they sent him to U of M, University of Michigan, for those of you who don't know, which is in Ann Arbor, Michigan. That's the city, Ann Arbor, Michigan. And it's about 50 minutes, I guess, 50 minutes to an hour from Detroit. So that was a drive, of course, that we had to do, and his mother had to do. We only had to do it since Gigi and I got here. Gigi and I arrived on Wednesday, which was my son Derek's birthday. So I wasn't able to spend, my birthday with Derek. This is the first birthday I've ever missed since he's been alive. But it was so last minute. I didn't want to run the risk on seeing Amani alive. And we kept getting what I thought to be conflicting information. Stacy, his mother, was under a great deal of stress, as you guys could imagine. So she was remembering some things. She couldn't remember other things. And I couldn't understand why and how were we getting information that he was going to live, then he's going to die, and it just kept going back and forth. So finally, I tell my mother, we need to get out there and be with her, of course, Stacy, but also we need to get clarity from the doctors just to find out what's going on. So immediately when we landed in Detroit from Las Vegas, my mother called Stacy, let her know we're here, and we want to come see Amani. And then she says, well, it looked like he has taken another turn for the worse. Understand, this was like the 10th, 11th time that they told us that. So I didn't think that he was going to go. I really was very hopeful that he was going to, that Amani was going to make it through this. I had moments back in, I think, April of him dying, but I'm like, no, there's just no way, God wouldn't allow us to go all this time not knowing him. Then he come into our life just for him to die. That's just, I couldn't, and I still can't wrap my head around it, to be honest. So when we got here, Gigi and I zipped up to the hospital. He recognized me. He held my hand. I mean, he was very excited to see Gigi and I. Of course, she and I had to hold it together because we didn't want him to see us break down. We didn't want Amani to see us crying. So we wanted to show him, we didn't want him to be able to look at our faces and gauge just how bad he was doing. And we didn't want to talk around him about him possibly not being here. We wanted to give him as much fighting hope as possible, as you could imagine. So, I talked to him. I asked him to hold my hand. I told him about all you guys' love. I told him about his GoFundMe. I said, your GoFundMe, it funded basically, because at that point we was like at $16,000 some odd dollar amount. So I say, so you don't got nothing to worry about. You don't got to worry about going to work for at least, maybe a year or so. I was trying to give him as much hope as I could give him. I was trying to give him as much hope as I could give him without telling him, if they don't think you're going to make it, you guys don't even understand. When I say devastating, I think it's devastating because unfortunately, because I can't just grieve for myself. I am grieving for my mother, who's taking it very hard. I'm grieving for my children, who's taking it very hard. understand Amani is their first, or was their first cousin, and they were like siblings. You guys remember when we came to Detroit and we first met him? They literally played like children. I mean, like Amani became a 3-year-old with them because he never had younger cousins. So he had younger cousins. He's never had younger cousins as young as they were, and of course he didn't have that many. And the joy on his face, I think what makes it so hard for me is because I keep repicturing how he looked when we first met him. All the scenes we did, we ate together, we played cards, and I keep thinking to myself, and I kept thinking to myself, there's no way, God is going to let him die. That's the last thing he's not going to die. But maybe some kind of way, this will give us some kind of insight into a person with a liver transplant or liver issues, because we never had that. I never had it. Gigi, of course, she never had any experience with it, which is one of the reasons why we started the nonprofit foundation. We wanted to show him that, this is something we're doing. So when you get yourself well, we could fight this fight together and help other families, because that was another problem. Was he was going through a lot of issues, because of course he got his son, he couldn't work his job, so he had to lean on his mother. Then he had to, of course, lean on me and Gigi, and we were sending money back and forth to Detroit to the family. And this has been really going on since last year. So understand, I'm trying to catch you guys up. So going back from last year to him having the issues and getting closer and closer to this year, and now getting to this point. So let me fast forward all the way from October of last year, which is when things really started taking a turn for the worse. When we progressed up to right now, he had the first of the 3, because remember he had one transplant surgery when he was 21. We met him when he was 24. So we met him 3 years after his first transplant. Then we had the second one, which was June. I think it was June 5th. And that's the one where the liver started to dying. And then we had the third one. I think it was Father's Day weekend. Yeah, it was Father's Day weekends when he had the third one. So the liver itself was doing good. But then this is when all the little issues that was happening that we thought were little, we didn't know that they were basically brewing for larger issues, one of which was sepsis. So he had sepsis, he had a fungus in the brain, he had, of course, the liver transplant that had just occurred. He was on dialysis because, unfortunately, when liver recipients are going through the process, they have to shut the kidneys down redirect the blood or something. So they have to put them on dialysis because the kidneys can't function properly due to the surgery. And then he had an infection in his stomach on top of sepsis. So I asked the doctor when we get here, we had a big family meeting where, Gigi and myself, his other grandmother, his aunt, of course, his mother, a couple other people. I can't remember. It was a bunch of us in the room. And so we went like each person at a time, basically gave their questions and answers to the doctor. And so I asked the doctor, how come, because one of you has sent us give me a second, y'all. One of you has sent me a message telling me to have him take vitamin C, a vitamin C shot, because one of you were sepsis also, or went into septic shock, and they gave you guys vitamin C, a shot of vitamin C, and it saved you, and y'all were in a coma. So basically, you guys had described the same thing that Amani was dealing with. Well, the difference was you probably didn't have a liver issue. And so what happens is when you have a liver recipient, they had to reduce his, what did you call it? His immune system. They had to reduce his immune system so that it doesn't attack the liver, so that the liver will be able to take, or the body will be able to accept the liver. If they had given him the vitamin C shot that one of you guys had recommended, which was a great advice if it hadn't have been for him having a liver issue, basically to work around the liver, they would have to, they couldn't work around the liver. In order to have gotten rid of the fungus, they would have had to attack it so aggressively that the medicine that would have helped the fungus in his head would have worked adverse to the liver. And to keep the liver good, how did she say that? Basically, the situation was, in order to help one, you had to kill the other. So he was in a situation we couldn't do neither. So that's why there was like the brain fog that he had. So if a lot of you guys remember when I did the live with me, Gigi, and his mother, In that live, if you guys can, and you can go back on my Instagram, you'll see it. And that particular one, I'm wearing the Detroit D hat. So if you see the Detroit D hat, that's the one you can go back to. There's a couple of times in that live where Amani is attempting to get out of the bed. So he was still in his right mind, but the brain fog was causing him to act irrational, if you will. But that was the fungus we referring to as brain fog, because we didn't know at that time it was actually fungus on the brain. So if you guys remember tuning into that particular live, on that live, you'll see, you'll hear Stacy, his mother, telling him, no, baby, sit down, sit down. And you'll hear the nurse in the background telling him to sit down. That was the brain fungus right then, but we didn't know it. We just kept referring to it as brain fog, meaning he was just a little off in the head, because of he wasn't able to get his bearings totally together, but he's still good. And so when we got here, he still was having somewhat of the brain fog, but also he had the heavy medication that had him sort of, out of it. So the doctors had said once they knew that we were flying in, they were going to reduce that because they wanted him to give us as natural of a response as possible, which he did. It was very difficult for Gigi because he was excited to see Gigi. He lit up. He held her hand. She asked him to hold up his arm. He held up his arm. He was doing things that you knew he was totally in his right mind. And so when Gigi come back we were still in the family room. Gigi was in there with him. When she come back, she was just like, no, we gotta, he gotta fight this thing. He's too much of himself for us to give up. And that's when the doctor just broke it down and said, pretty much, he's fighting. And that's when she really broke it down and told us he's fighting 5 different things. We really can't treat any of them because when you treat any one that you treat, you're working against the other ones. So we were sort of like, and it took us a minute to get it. Like, okay, so what now? Because we're thinking like we still can figure out some kind of a fight. And that's when she just nicely put it like, this is sort of when as a family, you guys got to make the decision to, do you want to allow him to go on and possibly suffer? Or do you want to, if you allow him to suffer, not only will he be suffering, but you are dragging the inevitable out. And so we were like, so what would you suggest? And that's when she said, I think that you guys, at this point, we need to slowly start taking him off, taking the breathing tube out of his throat, taking the feeding tube out of his throat. And I think when she said the feeding tube, so I'm like, so we starve him to death? I've never been in this situation before. When my grandmother, Gigi's mother, died, she was on life support, and they said that just by removing her from life support, she would pretty much go almost shortly after. And she did, so it was only life support that was keeping her. She wasn't responding. She had 0 brain activity. So that, honestly, as painful as that was for me, because I was very close to my grandmother, like Darren is to Gigi, as painful as that was, and my grandmother at the time was 86, it was easier to do because she had no brain activity. But to basically pull the plug on someone that you're able to visibly see are in their right mind, he's visibly conscious. Amani was conscious. He knew me. He grabbed my hand and he had a strong grip. And I asked him, I said, do you love me? And he gripped my hand. I mean, it was a man grip. It was a full grown adult male grip. And I told him, I said, I love you, man. I love you. I just kept telling him, I love you. I love you. I kissed him on his forehead. I wanted him to know without me telling him that, he's going to go or they're telling us that he's going to die. I wanted him to have as much fight as I possibly could. So when Gigi came back into the room, that was her biggest issue, was how do we let go? And that's when the doctors just broke it down that we have to do it. And they suggested, of course, taking the thing out, the breathing tube out of his mouth, taking the feeding tube out, taking him off the dialysis machine, and making him comfortable. And I know that's one of the top comments that they always make for patients that are in hospice is they just want to make them comfortable. So I'm like, so she said, so one of the side effects is you'll notice that he might struggle to breathe. And that thing, y'all, I have not slept for 2 days. When I saw him struggling to breathe, I could not get that image out of my head. Literally, my first night of sleep did not happen until last night after he died. Because I got a sense of peace knowing that he wasn't suffering. And I think for me, I keep going in my head over Stacy, his mother. She's been dealing and battling with this all this time. As a single mom, she has an older son. It was 2 of them. And she's been really taking care of his son. And she's just such an excellent mother, such an excellent sister-in-law. And I call her my sister-in-law. She's not my sister-in-law. She's my sister-in-law because she's the absolute best woman ever. I mean, I really mean that. You know, she included us. She included us in on everything. You know, we've only known him for 2 years. So it's like we really don't have any, respectfully, we don't have any right to give our input. That's really how I felt because we've not been a part of his life. And she sat there and she's like, no, I want, Gigi and Deon, I want y'all input. And it was so bittersweet because, and it still is, because as thankful as we are to see the real her, this mom is representing what family is supposed to be. She's showing how family is supposed to be, which is everything that we believe in. It's everything that the Derricos genuinely believe in. Stacy showed that. But it's like, and I always saw it, me and Gigi, we both saw just the love that the family has shown us prior to any of this. But it amplified that love. And it's like, God, why? Why would we have to lose him? I valued him. We talked every day. We FaceTime. We've only actually seen each other 3 times because of his illness. Our schedules has just been so conflicting that we hadn't been able to see each other, as much as we would have liked to. But in my mind, and of course in all of our minds, we thought we was going to have each other for, all this time. We got all this time together. And I think what really got me was when his mother called me and asked me if we would be okay if she buries him beside his father. That thing, she asked me, would it be okay if she bury Amani beside his father? Which instantly took me back to the moment in season 3, when we first met him and we took him to his father's grave, and no one could have prepared us for this. This is like out of some type of, I can't even tell y'all. To know that she wants to bury her son beside his father, his deceased father's gravesite, and he never knew him. And we, in my mind, introduced him to his father or his father's grave. And now that's where he'll be buried. The honor, the love, the respect that I have for Stacy. And understand, for me to go on like this, y'all have to know how great of a person she must be. The level of her including us and feeling bad. She felt bad for the fact that, of course, we just met him. But like my mother had to tell her, and like I told her, that's God's plan. I can't even imagine why we would go all of his life and meet him right at the tail end. I can't imagine why it would be right now. I can't imagine why any of this would happen. And so the other night when I couldn't sleep, I was just up thinking. I was thinking Gigi would sleep. I had to get out of the bed with her. I've been really close with my mother, y'all. Literally so close that she and I have been in the same bed. I sleep in the same bed with my mother. Yes. And so I got out of bed and I went out of the room because I didn't want to wake her up. But in that moment, I remember thinking that that the reason why we had to meet him, because it wasn't for us, it was for him. On a spiritual level, it was for him. It wasn't for us. We're the ones left behind and feeling the loss of it. But it wasn't for us. It's for him. And I told my mother that the next day. And for the most part, that has given me great strength. On a spiritual level, it has given me great strength, great understanding that on some spiritual realm of God, of Jesus, of life and death, that God knew that in order for his Amani, for his mission to be complete, he needed to get what we had to give him. And it's a great feeling, of course. It's a great feeling, but it's a great feeling knowing that you have, or thinking that we have fulfilled a major plan on earth. But the pain is devastating. It's devastating. Everyone since we've been back home have been great. We're at a family member's house. That's where we're at, right? That's where Gigi and I are staying, is at a family member's house. Everyone has been great. People have been cooking for us. As a matter of fact, if you guys saw my post yesterday, I think it was, that was Stacy and her family had prepared dinner for us. We told them, no, we don't want you to do anything for us. But to show you how they are, they wanted to welcome us in the midst of having just lost their son, their grandson, their nephew. Because it was Stacy, her mom, her sister Rock, Stacy's husband, Calvin, all of them worked together in making the meal for us yesterday. Mainly Rock, which is Stacy's older sister. But to know that they put themselves aside, that was their level of being, kind, if you will, their level of love for us. I mean, everyone came over to the house, welcoming us and just inviting us to so we've been gone today. And I've been good, all day today. I think it's just People Magazine, somebody told People Magazine, some kind of way People Magazine got a hold of the story. And the picture that people, if you Google my name, you'll see the picture. It's one of the first things to come up. If you Google Deon Derrico, Amani's going to be the first picture to come up after you scroll down under mine. And that's a People Magazine post. And the picture that People Magazine used happened to have been taken from the season 3 of the show. So that particular picture was taken at the gravesite. They were interviewing Amani at the gravesite. And the picture is just so full of life. It's just like, where did that person go? So the picture that I shared on my social media today where I was holding his hand, that picture was taken about 20 minutes after he had died. When I took that picture, he was gone. He was already gone. And I kissed on him. I cut some of his hair. I have some of his hair as a souvenir. I made a heart. The hospital gave us like this clay, and I was able to make a big heart, and I put his handprint on it. Done his fingerprints. I did that for his son. I did the heart for his son. Stacy, I had Stacy cut his hair for his son. Just all the things that I could think that I wish I had done even more with Carter. I wish I had taken pictures with Carter. I wish I had made video with Carter. None of those things. I was so busy trying to bury the emotions that I had from losing Carter that I didn't think about how I was going to feel once I got past that hurt, how I would wish to be able to go back to some of those moments. So I just gave Stacy all those ideas. I say, Stacy, you want to do everything with your son as you possibly can. So the nurses helped her move him over, and she got in the bed with him. This is after he was gone. She got in the bed with him. She caressed her baby. And I can say Amani passed away. If it's such a thing of passing away being purely loved, there was nothing but Amani, God, and love in that room. There was nothing but Amani, God, and love in that room. Because I keep thinking about his son. That's another thing. So right before he passed, I had his son, and Amani was asleep. And the hospital gave us a big room. So he was asleep. We were in another area of the room, but Gigi was facing Amani in the bed. And Gigi said, look, his eyes are open. She said, take the baby over there. I'm going to share pictures of the baby too. Y'all are going to absolutely love the baby. He's the cutest, absolute cutest little friendliest baby. He didn't want to go to Gigi as much, and that hurt her feelings. He came to me. I told my mother, I believe he kept smelling my 14 babies on me. That's the running joke. But so Gigi said, take him over there. So I take him over to Amani, and he looked up. He couldn't move at this point. He was just looking at us though. And it's like he looked at his son. He looked at me, and I just told him, I said, I got him, man. I got him. And, I kissed on his son. I let him see me kiss on his son. I let his son see me hold him and caress Amani. And I just told, I prayed over him while he was alive. I kept, calling Jesus and asking Jesus to guide him, to be there for him. Everything that I could think of that would operate or work in such a way, from a very spiritual God way, I wanted to use that moment to the best of my ability to I don't want to say lock in that moment. So right now it's locked in. It's like I have it really in my head. But to create as great of a spiritual journey for him going forward. Because I do believe in life after death. I do believe that there's some form of us evolving. And Stacy gave me something that was really significant. I wasn't there when he passed. Gigi and I hadn't made it to the hospital yet. And Stacy was there. And Stacy said about 30 minutes before he passed, his eyes were closed. And remember, y'all, he couldn't move any of his arms or anything. Right there at the end, Stacy said about 30 minutes before he died, he lifted his hand up like this, and he was doing it as if he was saying, "What's up?" To someone. But his eyes are closed, and he lifted his arm so far up that the nurse commented to Stacy and said, "Wow, he's pretty tall. He has a long reach." And Stacy said he held it up there, and then he just dropped it. She says, but it was like he was greeting. She said that he saw someone, but his eyes are closed. And I told her, I said, Stacy, that is God talking to you. I said, that is God letting you know. I don't know who it was. Jesus, my brother Chris, Amani had a host of other family members that's died. But, and I think it was me that said, maybe it was all of them, but it just gave me comfort in at least believing, but I do feel like I know. But it gives me comfort in believing that on some level that was Jesus, that's the Holy Spirit, that was all the great beings that has ever lived or helped to create our life. That was them welcoming him home. And I told Stacy, I really wanted to be there with him when he took his last breath. I wanted to be there. It just wasn't meant for whatever reason, but the best person who needed to be there and that was his mother, his Aunt Rock, and his son. The three of them were actually there then. Now, keep in mind, Gigi and I had been there the whole time. Since we arrived on Wednesday, we had been there the entire time, but it just wasn't meant that moment. So that's pretty much it. There was just nothing else they can do for him. I absolutely love University of Michigan, one of the best hospitals, absolutely best bedside manners that you could think of. As difficult as it was for them to tell us that his journey had pretty much completed itself, they still used the perfect wording to say it, and they used it with compassion. I know that they were compassionate enough to understand how severe it was for us, and they didn't want to just come out and say he's dying, but they told us that he was dying without being so harsh. And I do appreciate all the doctors and staff for that. So I haven't been able to go through all y'all messages. The love y'all have been sending us is so great. I probably won't even get through all of them. I'm just going to be honest. So I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you from all of us. Thank you for the love, the messages. And I wasn't going to do this live, but I read one of you guys' message, and it went on to say how y'all were so shocked and y'all were so hopeful that we would be able to heal him and he would live because y'all felt like this was just too short of a time period for us to have. And you said whoever this person was, I can't remember the name, but they said key things that I was really feeling, and it brought tears to my eyes. And it brought tears to my eyes because it's like, wow, some of y'all get it. Many of y'all, not some of y'all, many of y'all get it. And it really and truly, like, this is when I can honest to God say that I'm thankful for having y'all. Because something like this is so severe, so traumatic. If you don't have the right kind of mindset, which thank God I do, and if you don't have the right kind of support, which thank God I do, I don't know how people get through this. I've never suffered such a loss. So again, I cannot thank you guys enough. I just left an event that someone had hosted for us. And at the event, of course, a lot of fans from the show were there. And they was just like, oh my God, my heart goes out and you're just so natural. You're so normal, regular acting. And oh my God, I love you even more. And I'm hugging them and I'm just thanking them. And I just told them. And they were trying to apologize because they didn't want to feel like they was infringing on Gigi and I for being there. And I'm like, listen, if it wasn't for you guys, I don't even know how we would do it. So we are as thankful for you as you think you are for us. Believe that. That's the honest to God's truth. So we love you. We honest to God from the bottom of my heart. I love every one of you that take the time out of your day to send me a positive message, to take the time out of your day and send my mother a positive message, to take the time out of your day to just say, you got me. Just hearing those words, just seeing those words, it means everything, guys. Positive energy is good. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Sending prayers. Thank you so much.